Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Focus on Hopkins County. I'm your host, Tim Thomas. Certainly glad you've joined us for this edition of our program. We're sitting down having a one-on-one conversation with the Honorable Mayor of the great city of Madisonville, which is still the best town on earth, and none other than the Honorable David Jackson. Mayor Jackson, glad to have you back on Focus on Hopkins County.
It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Glad to have you, and a lot of things happening in our community. But we're here to talk about the restaurant tax and get information out to our community about what is taking place in that area.
Right. Well,
give us a rundown.
Sure. You know, there's a lot of questions surrounding the restaurant tax and why are we looking at it now? You know, what's going to be the purpose of it? You know, how it's going to affect people. And so I really do appreciate the opportunity to come today and kind of, you know, clear the air a little bit, let people know what we're looking at and why we're thinking about this right now. You know, we want Madisonville to be as successful as we possibly can. And it becomes even more important when we look at the pressure that's being put on our coal industry right now. And so when we look at the components of a successful community, you know, workforce development is a very important part of it. Location, you know, and the proximity to I-69, and I think that's going to bring a lot of great opportunities to our area. Education and training. You know, we just along with the county, invested $1 million into the new four-year educational facility at MCC in partnership with Murray State University. And we're really excited about that because that's going to allow a lot more of our young people to get an education here, and hopefully by getting their education here, they'll stay here and grow here. But then when we look at, my opinion is right now, the part that's really missing is quality of place. When we talk to some of our higher end employers who have to attract some folks who really could go about anywhere in the United States they wanted to work. Some of them have told me previously that they have a difficult time sometimes attracting these people into Madisonville. One of the complaints I get from a lot of parents is our kids don't have anything to do. You know, and so when we look at that as a community, we have to look at ways that we could begin to address this situation. And we have been addressing it. You know, we've been working on Mark Park for a couple of years, taking a very slow approach on it, doing what we can in the budget. We're working on, built the water park at Festus Claiborne a couple years ago, and that's been a big hit. On any hot day out there, you can just see a crowd of kids having a great time, and that's exactly what we want. We redid the biking trails out at Grapevine after we had to do some logging that was recommended to us by the Forestry Service because of some dead trees and some dangers associated with that. But when we look at overall quality of place, the ability for us to consistently do things that's going to attract people to Madisonville and keep people in Madisonville is just not part of our normal operating budget, to be able to do that. And so when we look at our options, the restaurant tax came to the forefront. We've looked at it for a couple of years. This isn't something that we've just jumped into and just jumping off a cliff, so to speak.
Right, this is something that has been surveyed and studied for
That's right. We've done a lot of research. We've visited a lot of communities that have it, talked to their mayors, talked to their business owners. I just talked to Mayor Eddie Gooch from Providence a couple of days ago. He actually called me and was telling me about it, and he said, two things. He said, I want people to really understand. He said, number one, every year that we've had this restaurant tax, the collections from it have gone up, which indicates that their restaurant sales have gone up. And he said, number two, he said, the thing I really want people to get a hold of is that a lot of people from outside your community are also paying this tax that goes in to support your own community. So we hope with the proximity to I-69 and some new restaurants going in and things like that, that we'll see even more of that.
And this is a 3% tax on all prepared food.
Prepared food, that's right. And so that would affect, restaurants, delis, either in a supermarket or at a convenience store. Catering would also fall under this. So any prepared food that's prepared and sold in the city of Madisonville would have this 3% tax on it.
Sure. What are some of the components of this?
The tax revenue has to be used for tourism, to promote tourism. And so the way that we see the components that we see of this, Tim, would be basically one side would be projects. And just to throw out a few projects that we've talked about, nothing's set in stone at this point in time, but we've talked about, possibly a 3,000 to 4,000 seat amphitheater at Mar Park, improvements to Grapevine Park, to make it more of an adventure park. And what I'm talking about there would be like zip lining, climbing sports, especially for kids.
Yes.
Water sports, that's not, that lake is not used as one of our water supplies for the city, so we can be a little more lax in what's allowed on that lake than we could, let's say, at Lake Pee Wee. Trail running, we already have trail biking, but we'd like to expand that. Trail running, hiking, things like that. I could also see a campground there. Since it's right off of I-69, I think we could, attract some folks in by doing that. Then, we'd also, other projects would be improvements to our downtown, beautification of our downtown. The downtown, even in all modern cities, the downtown is still a heart. And when people see a downtown that's in poor condition, that's not properly maintained, there's a lot of empty buildings, things like that, that reflects on the whole city. And so we've had a lot of great things going on downtown. Sugg Street is really in a revival mode right now and growing, and that's thanks a lot to Governor Beshear and some money that he gave us for some improvements there, and all of the merchants there on Sugg Street that have worked so hard. Jenny Gibson leading the charge. We have flowers, and we're doing everything that we can. But my concern is, Tim, that without putting this into place, we're not going to be able to do enough to keep up.
It will actually reflect in the person themselves and how they feel about downtown. If they see a downtown that's not thriving, it can have effect on them psychologically.
It really does, and how they view the whole city. And we're already seeing some great things happening downtown. We just want to build on that and improve on that and keep the momentum going and growing and keep Madisonville growing. That's been one of our key, downfalls for about the last 10 or 15 years. Madisonville's population has basically stayed about 19,000, 19,500. We haven't grown. With the pressure that we're seeing on our coal industry, my concern is we wouldn't see growth. We might actually see some shrinkage. And that has a lot of effects on us in our ability to attract restaurants, to attract retailers, to keep Madisonville growing, to attract businesses because they look at the opportunity for workforce. And so again, I think for Madisonville to be strong and vibrant, to be a successful community, we need to have something in place that allows us to consistently improve upon our quality of place. And the other track of that, Tim, we had the project side. The other track of it is events.
Yes.
And we would have, I could envision us having some really great events. We have Friday Night Live, but that's a much smaller scale of what we're thinking here. We'd like to have some bigger names that would attract more people in. We'd like to do more festivals, arts and crafts fairs, concerts. I could envision having a country concert, a gospel concert, and a pop concert, every year, something that's pretty good, pretty large scale that would attract a lot of people in, doing a lot of things that will also bring our restaurants in and involve them in the process. Our hope is just as, Mary Eddie Guccia told me was going on in Providence, our hope is that it actually increases the business to our restaurants by bringing these tourists in and by having events that keep our people here over the weekend instead of them going to Nashville or Evansville or Louisville or wherever they may go. By offering more opportunities here in Madisonville, I think we're going to see an increase in the revenues to the restaurants.
I noticed one chart that you had showed the whole state of Kentucky, and it was a long line there of cities that have taken up this tax. Kind of explain that to us.
When you look at that chart, north and south of us, neither Henderson nor Hopkinsville has the restaurant tax in place right now. Now that's because they're not the right classification of city to be able to have a restaurant tax. Mayor Steve Austin of Henderson's a really good friend of mine and work with him closely with the Kentucky League of Cities. We've had conversations where he said, I really wish we could have this in Henderson because we need it, to improve our tourism. But when you look on the east-west corridor, West Kentucky Parkway, now turning into I-69, and on west of us, you started Elizabethtown, Litchfield, Beaver Dam, Central City, Greenville, Eddyville, Catawba, Providence, Marion, Cadiz down to Oak Grove, Grand Rivers. The east-west corridor is all of those cities I just named have it.
Sure.
The only exception is that doesn't have it is Princeton and Madisonville. So this isn't something new. This isn't something that it's going to put us at a competitive disadvantage with a lot of cities that we share a common corridor with. It's actually going to put us on equal footing with them. as far as levying this restaurant tax and being able to offer, again, the kind of amenities that attract people to Madisonville and keep people in Madisonville.
When we talk about the tax and we talk about the pros and cons, I know that we're hearing both sides of the story. Kind of enlighten us as a listening audience why you feel that this is important, and the future extent of it, of the tax.
There were some studies done by the New Cities Initiative a few years ago. Some surveys that they did of our community. They interviewed 328 high schools, juniors and seniors. Said 75% said they could stay here, but 56% wanted to live somewhere else. They surveyed 304 Madisonville Community College students. 76 of them said they could probably live here postgraduate, but 55% wanted to live somewhere else. And the survey revealed 3 key points: lack of jobs, desire to attend a four-year college, and the third thing was nothing to do, lack of opportunity, lack of entertainment. When we look at the effect of that, on 55% of college students, 56% of high school students saying that they really would just as soon live somewhere else. If you took just the college students and the enrollment out at MCC at that point in time was 3,769, you multiplied that by the percentage that wanted to leave post-graduation, that was about 1,183 students. If their median earnings was about $26,683 a year, the potential lost in earnings per year would be $31 million. That's a big effect on our economy.
Yes.
We are losing, unfortunately, some of our best and our brightest. They go off to get an education to Lexington or Louisville or somewhere else, Nashville, and they end up staying there. Unfortunately, grandparents go and visit their kids in other cities.
Sure.
My hope is that having this piece of the puzzle, and again, it's not the whole thing. It's not. I don't see this as a cure-all or the answer to everything, but I just see this as one important piece to what we're trying to achieve here. When we have that available, then we can improve upon our quality of place. Great projects that not only attract people from out of town or attract businesses into Madisonville, but our current residents can take advantage of them and enjoy them too. And when we have the right kind of events that engages the community and keeps people excited about being here, then we hopefully can attract businesses that will offer jobs to these young people that are working hard, getting their education, doing the right things, and keep them here. Again, it's important for me that Madisonville be successful, that we continue to grow and not go the other way.
Within the city council ranks itself, there seemed to be a divide.
Sure.
How are you trying to win skeptics over?
Well, again, I think we're looking at the division of the funds. Number one, and there's other cities in Kentucky that have adopted the same type of plan. The funds we would leave 10% to 15%. We're currently talking with the Hopkins County Tourism Commission, but we'd leave a certain percentage with them, and then the rest would go and be administered by City Council. I think that the reason why I think that's important is that gives the voters an opportunity to look at how these funds are being administered, look at the projects that are being done. They're not just somebody's pet project, or they're not just a few people deciding, but now the voters are represented by those city council members,
right,
who actually vote on these projects and decide, this is what we think is important. This is where we want to invest our dollars. But I would also like to see the city council, the 6 folks who sit on city council, aided by a commission, if you would, a committee that would make recommendations.
An advisory committee.
An advisory committee. And on that advisory committee, again, this is kind of theoretical because we haven't set all this in stone, but I'd like to see, somebody from a restaurant represented, somebody from a hotel represented. I'd like to see somebody from healthcare represented, from industry, and somebody from a nonprofit sector, and then somebody just at large, just pick a citizen, folks who are engaged in the community who care, because again, we want to bring as many ideas as we can to the table so that when we can look through those ideas and see which one at any point in time is the best place to invest these funds.
Sure.
We certainly don't want to see these funds go into some account and just sit there and collect dust, if you would. We want to get these funds back out working in the community to help Madisonville grow.
Right. I think we're on the right track with it. You spoke with the Chamber of Commerce a few weeks ago, which I was sitting in on. Great presentation.
Thank you.
How did they receive your?
I think mostly it was quite positively received. I think that was where the idea for the advisory committee was kind of put forth. How we could kind of bring more ideas to the table, because as I said in a previous newspaper interview, I don't think that myself or our city council have all the great ideas that way that these things could be expended and used to better Madisonville. And so again, I want to see the advisory committee thing put into place. By and large, though, I think the response was positive. I know they had a poll that was sent out to their membership. Now, this was the board that I was talking to, but they had a poll that sent out to their membership that was by and large, received negatively. The poll had two questions on it: do you support the restaurant tax, and do you own a restaurant? I think anytime you ask somebody a question, do you support a tax, without giving them information of what they're going to get out of it, how it's going to benefit them and their families, I think your automatic reaction to anything like that, do you support an increase in taxes? Well, no. And again, this is a little bit different tax than anything else that's being, I guess, discussed at this point in time. This isn't a tax on real estate or a tax on wages. This is an activity that we choose to do, and my family, we choose to eat out a lot.
Yeah.
We will be paying this tax just like everybody else. It's, it's kind of the difference. If you look at it, there's some places I go where they want a 15% tip to the waiter or waitress,
right?
And there's other places where they recommend 18%. Well, that's basically the entire difference. And so on a $30 restaurant bill, it would be about 90 cents would be the effect of that. So again, it's not a huge impact, but yet working together and bringing all the dollars in from the folks who are passing through Madisonville and eating at our restaurants, it can have a big effect on the community. And again, it's we could go a different route. There's a different way we could achieve this. When you look at Owensboro, Owensboro's done some great things with their riverfront. Mayor Payne is a good friend of mine. I have tremendous respect for him and what he's doing. But Owensboro, just on the riverfront alone, has borrowed about $90 million, just to do that project and to do all those improvements downtown. When you look up at Evansville's long-term debt's over $500 million, over $500 million. Theoretically, we could go out and borrow. We've done a great job in the first 4 years. I'm in my 5th year as mayor now.
And the budget has been balanced?
We've always had a surplus. We've cut our debt in half from $26 million down to $13 million. We've cut our workforce by about 10%. We have adopted a zero-based budgeting model where we really scrutinize the budget and go through it, painstakingly to try to get the best thing that we can. Some of our budgets look like they were prepared by Ebenezer Scrooge, but that's okay. We've been able to move Madisonville in the right direction fiscally. And so when we look at what we're doing here, we're not doing this because we're having a budget problem, because we're up against the wall with our budget. But what we're doing is we see an opportunity and we see a need. We see that Madisonville needs to diversify. We need to attract and keep our young people. We need to be more involved in technology industries and things like that. So again, we're trying to create the kind of place that will allow those things to happen.
Right. Well, I think that just the word tax itself is just scares people, without, and that's why we wanted to focus in on the importance of why this is being put forth,
right,
and the benefits that it can bring to the community.
That once we've got this in place and the people begin to see the projects that are done, they begin to see the benefit. Things that they used to have to go out of town to be able to do or to see, those things are being brought to them now. I think they'll really see it as a good deal. I think they'll see this as something that's really a real positive benefit to our community. One of the objections that's been raised to me is, well, what about folks that are on fixed incomes or people who don't have a lot of money? You're putting a greater burden on them to be able to go out and eat. It's hard enough for them as it is, and I can certainly see their point. And again, even folks who disagree with me, I understand where they're coming from. I just hope that together we can catch the vision of what Madisonville can be. But when you look at the folks that are either on a fixed income or maybe economically challenged, we're bringing great events to them that they may not otherwise have the opportunity to participate in. We'll be bringing concerts, we'll be bringing opportunities, in our parks and things like that for folks to come in and have a good time in Madisonville that may not be able to afford to go to Orlando or go out of town, to go to the beach or something like that. And so, again, those are some of the people I think that will benefit the most from this because we're all working together as a community. And instead of going into debt, instead of borrowing money and putting Madisonville's future at risk, we're paying for it as we go. If I'm wrong, we don't have all these economic problems facing us, and we don't, not looking at Madisonville shrinking, then at worst we paid a little bit more on our restaurant bill. If I'm right, then this could be the key that really gets Madisonville moving in the right direction and beginning to grow. The downside isn't too great, but the upside, the potential is really good. And that's what I want people to get a hold of and see, that by all of us working together, not going into debt, not borrowing money, not mortgaging our future, but paying for it as we go and getting input from all the communities through this advisory committee and having the city council that answers to the people vote on these funds, then I think we've got a good system in place that again, we should have the best results that we could possibly achieve.
Yeah, and I think I like the idea of bringing in the advisory council that will help kind of guide because that gives everybody a voice.
That's right.
At the table.
That's right, and by separating them up into those different, segments of the community, we're making sure we have everybody represented, and then keeping their terms, maybe 2-year term or something like that, so that we swap people out.
Right.
We see a change, and again, so that it doesn't seem like it's just somebody's pet project, because I certainly don't want that money to be used for that. I'm not fighting this hard to try to get this through to see somebody's pet project done. I really want to see this done to improve Madisonville.
You have to go out of the box, correct? To make this, even our forefathers here in the city of Madisonville had to make decisions, I would think, that were tough decisions to bring us to where we are now. Sure.
And again, it's I guess, the road that we could take is to pay for it as we go. Everybody pays a little bit, and we get, in my opinion, a big benefit to the community out of it. Or we mortgage our future, or we just sit back and don't do anything. And again, my concern about sitting back and not doing anything is we haven't grown. We have tremendous pressure on the backbone of our economy, which is coal. Through the EPA, and we've seen shrinkage of the coal industry in eastern Kentucky. We've seen coal severance dollars cut. There's been a lot of talk from the county about that, how that their coal severance dollars are cut. We've seen a lot of things that have gone on in eastern Kentucky, and I certainly don't want Madisonville to follow down that path. I want us to be ready. My hope is that we put this in and we grow Madisonville, and coal stays strong, and Madisonville just continues to grow. We become what's called an ascendant city. We're growing, not shrinking. We're moving forward, not falling back.
So what kind of deadline are we looking at now?
Really, honestly, Tim, there's not a deadline, and we've tried to take this slowly. We haven't even had a first reading in City Council yet. That's why we wanted to get it out in the public, get people talking about it. Hear their feedback, hear their questions, their concerns, their ideas. Yes. Incorporate that into the final product so that we have the best that it can be. And so we're taking it slow. My hope is that we would have our first reading sometime in the month of November, maybe our second reading in the month of December, and begin in January.
Any last things you want to share with us about this particular?
Well, again, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about it. I think we're a city that values its young people. And again, I think this is a way to offer them some things to do, to keep them engaged and involved in Madisonville. I think it's a way to offer some benefits to the community at large, things that we all can take advantage of. Trail or park interconnectivity. That's not sidewalks. That's multi-purpose trails that we have bikes and running and walking on. Just a lot of improvements all over the city, getting the input from the community, running it through the city council so that there is, that the voters are represented. They do have a voice in what's going on. And then just working as hard as we can to improve Madisonville.
I know your door is always open.
It is. And the number for City Hall is 270-824-2100. And if they would ask for Laura, she's my executive assistant. She'll get them on my calendar. I'm happy to sit down and talk to anybody anytime about this because I really believe in it. And even if they have a difference of opinion than me, even if I don't convince them that it's the best thing in the world, I want to hear their concerns and I want to hear their ideas and their thoughts on it.
Yes. Mayor, we appreciate you coming, and we hope that this has been an avenue for you, our listening audience, to understand just the position the mayor is taking on this. And we want to encourage you, if you have any questions, call the mayor's office and get a hold of. We consider Laura the assistant mayor.
There you go. She does a great job.
She's a fine person and does an excellent job for you.
Yeah, she does. We have great folks who work for the city of Madisonville. I'm proud to be a co-worker with all of them.
Yeah. So get a hold of her, and she can put you in contact with the mayor. And we want to continue to make Madisonville the best town on earth. We've been talking with the Honorable Mayor of our city, Mayor David Jackson, and we hope that you will take advantage of what has been said today and get involved. Call your city councilman, get involved in the process. Important issues for an important time in the life of this community. I'm your host, Tim Thomas. By all means, keep sharing the dream.